Welcome to the Doggy Dojo. I'm your host, Susan Light, a Los Angeles based dog trainer and behavior consultant on a quest to become worthy of the title Sensei of the Doggy Dojo. Today we're talking about how to socialize your puppy. We've covered this before in one of my first episodes way back in season 1, and that was all great information. But it's been 4 years, if you can believe it, and I thought it was worth talking about again. Socialization is so misunderstood by the general public that they often don't learn how to do it properly until it's too late and the socialization period is over. Hopefully, you're listening to this before you've even brought your puppy home, or even you're just thinking about getting a puppy. But don't worry if, as you listen to this, you're realizing you're also too late for true socialization. Just know it's never too late to make a positive impact on your dog's confidence and behavior. It's just scientifically, it won't be socialization. It'll be desensitization and counter conditioning, which can be guided by a qualified trainer. But let's get into it. My guest is a veterinarian at Best Friends Animal Hospital in Valley Village. She graduated from the UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine in 2019. Her mission is to help pet parents meet all of their dogs and cats' mental, physical, and emotional needs without sacrificing their own. Recognizing that pet parents feel overwhelmed trying to figure out what information online is trustworthy and stressed out trying to remember everything their vet says during a visit, she launched ComprehensiveCompanionship.com as a one-stop shop for reliable pet parenting information. And, together with her friend and colleague, Dr. Alexis Taylor, later created the Instagram Nose to Tail for ongoing bite-sized bits of info. That's spelled KNOWS, the number 2, TAIL. But don't worry, I will link both the website and her Instagram account in the show notes for you. Please welcome Dr. Lauren Vaughan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay! I'm excited to talk about socialization. I have a really early episode about socialization from like 2021, but it's really misunderstood topic. So I think it's time to address it again.
Yes, really misunderstood, and at least for me, comes up pretty much every day.
Yeah, I think that if you've never had a puppy before, it totally makes sense why you've never heard of it. So let's just start there. What is socialization?
Yeah, let's talk about it. And I know today will be focused on dogs, but I just have to give the little disclaimer that this applies to kittens too. So keep that in mind if you're getting
Yeah,
a kitten in your life. And I would assume applies to human babies, but I don't have one of those yet, so I can't speak to that. Um,
interesting thought. Yeah.
But for puppies, socialization, and a lot of people, because the word is socialization, assume that it's put them in a social setting. Done. You've done socialization. But that's a misnomer. Really, what it is during a specific window of time in their brain development, exposing them in a positive way to new fill in the blank people, places, objects, experiences, and making sure that they are learning the association with those new things that we want them to learn, again, being positive experiences.
Yeah. So it's not take them to the dog park.
No, it's not take them to the dog park. And again,
Common mistake.
yes, if we're getting really technical, really sciency, going back to that specific period of time, it's actually describing a period of brain development. So it's around 3 to 14 weeks old.
Yeah. And so if you bring your puppy home at 8 weeks, which is typical of getting a
Hmm.
puppy, you're halfway through
I know.
already, basically.
Whenever I talk about socialization, most of the time we're either at that point, you have about a month to go, or sometimes they're 12 weeks old. And I do feel like I'm always scaring my pet parents. You've got 1 week to get this done. But the other thing, too, is that if you don't do all of the things we talk about today in the socialization period, it's not technically socialization by the brain development definition, but it is still useful, and the ideas still apply.
Yeah. So you technically can't socialize an older dog,
Right.
I do get clients asking that all the time. Oh, can you help me socialize them? And it's like, I can't because they're
Right.
too old. But like you said, that we can do like our other desensitization, classical conditioning, acclimation kind of things. But we're going to focus right now really on that brain development period. So I have a lot of clients that come to me with their puppies and I start talking about socialization and they say, the vet said don't take them outside till they have all their shots. So
Yeah.
first, let's go through the little shot schedule so people understand what we're talking about when they say that.
Yeah, good question. So, yes, it's a little bit of a divisive topic, even amongst veterinarians, especially generationally, because
Mm,
the ideas about it have changed over time. But basic puppy vaccine schedule as a foundation, we're generally starting them out at about 6 weeks old with their vaccines and ending no earlier than 16 weeks. And in that time frame, so in that 10-week period, we're usually vaccinating them every 3 to 4 weeks.
hmm. And which shots are they getting?
So again, a little disclaimer, I'm going to speak specifically to the vaccines that I give in the Los Angeles area, and it does vary a tiny bit depending on where you are in the world because, of course, what your puppy's
What
going to be
diseases are
exposed
around, right?
to
Yeah,
totally depends on where they live.
yeah.
But at least in the US too, we have the American Animal Hospital Association, or AHA, and they have guidelines that veterinarians, for the most part, follow. And so that's generally accepted in the US. And the AHA guidelines recommend certain vaccines as core vaccines, meaning every puppy should have them. And
Hmm.
that's rabies, the combo vaccine, and now updated as of 2024, leptospirosis.
Yay!
Yay! We love vaccinating against lepto. And combo, just in case people do get confused because it kind of goes by different names, is also DHPP or DA2P, or you probably know
DLPP now, right? If lepto is in there.
DLPP, yeah, so some hospitals lump the lepto into it. Ours separates it. There's not
Hmm.
one that's better than the other, but the combo without the lepto is covering for distemper virus, parvovirus, and a couple of others.
Yeah, hepatitis. I think the H is hepatitis.
Yeah, exactly, which is also there's adenovirus. So sometimes that's why it's the DA, but adenovirus
Yeah.
produces hepatitis, which is why it's DH. So it's confusing. I usually say combo.
Yeah. So the first round probably, hopefully, your puppy got before they came to you, right? Because you say if we're starting at 6 weeks and you're adopting at 8 weeks, hopefully they got that first round of shots
Mm-hmm.
already,
Yep.
and then you'd be taking them for their second round um, around. Okay, so you said 3 to 4 weeks, so pretty
Mm-hmm.
quickly after you bring them home.
Yeah, a lot of the time, it happens one of two ways. Either somebody adopts a puppy from a shelter, rescue, breeder, what have you, and they just got vaccinated, and then they are mandated to go to the vet right after adoption for a health check. So we're not vaccinating them again a couple days later, but then we are just doing a
Checking.
physical exam, checking, and
Yeah.
then talking about the schedule. Or you'll adopt your puppy and it's just about time for that next series, and then you come to me and it's been 3 weeks and then we booster.
Okay. And then at around 16 weeks, they would get that last combo shot, and that's when you usually do rabies. Yeah.
Rabies, yeah, technically you can do it as early as 12, but typically we're doing it at 16. And again, if we want to get just a little bit granular and if it's of interest to puppy parents, which I know it always is, independent of socialization, when we're talking about the vaccine schedule, when it comes to the combo vaccine, which is the one that they're going to start with the earliest at 6 weeks and then end at 16 weeks ish, we it's really really important that we're doing that one every 3 to 4 weeks, and that one doesn't finish, that series doesn't finish until at least 16 weeks old, because we're catching a window of time where maternal antibodies, whatever mom was protected against, and we generally assume mom had some protection against those combo
Hmm.
diseases, that maternal antibody immunity is going down slowly over time and gone by 16 weeks. So we know our last shot at that time is going to take effect. If we end too early, then the body might think, oh, mom's antibodies are still here. I'm
Mm,
protected. I don't need to mount a response to this vaccine. And then 3 weeks later, they're totally unprotected.
how interesting. Okay. That's fascinating. So it's confusing, but
It is.
the vet can help you with this.
Yeah, your
That's
vet
why
will help you.
you should have paperwork for all the shots that your puppy has had, and then your vet can help you sort them out.
Yep.
But so I will say, most of the people, when they take them for the well check, if they're talking about these shots, they'll say, don't take your puppy outside until the shots are done. So they're talking about like after that 16 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
all those shots are done. Then they would consider the dog to be quote unquote fully vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, now you can take them out. But the problem with that is the socialization window has closed.
Yep. Exactly. By weeks, we're out of it for sure.
Yeah, so it puts me in a tough position as a trainer because I do not want to contradict a veterinary professional who's told my clients these things,
Yeah.
but I do like to encourage them to try to socialize. So, the diseases that you talked about, parvo, hepatitis, lepto,
Mm-hmm.
how can we socialize without unnecessarily exposing our dogs who aren't fully vaccinated yet?
Yes, this is the money question. And the non-core vaccines that I vaccinate against here in Los Angeles are Bordetella, which is also known as kennel
Hmm.
cough, and then influenza, canine influenza. So
Yeah.
we'll think about those too when we're talking about a game plan to socialize safely. And when I was thinking about how to break this down most simply, I realized that the COVID-19 pandemic, there's one silver lining, which is most people are really familiar now with thinking about keeping yourself safe from infectious disease and
Hmm.
lifestyle shifts.
Yeah.
So, if we think about the diseases that we're protecting our puppy against, and we start with the analogy of when we were trying not to get COVID, let's think about the ones that are passed by respiratory droplets because that's really similar. And that would be distemper, influenza, one of the adenoviruses, and Bordetella. So those are all going to be from a dog who's carrying those diseases, sneezing, or it's in their eye discharge or in their breath.
Mm.
And so if we don't want our puppy to get those diseases, of course, we're vaccinating them as recommended by our veterinarian, but we're also not going into super crowded areas with a bunch of dogs with unknown health. Indoors would be the worst because you're sharing
Mm.
that air, recycling it over and over. They're not face to face, licking each other. And if you are going out in the world and nearby unknown dogs, which you should be, we'll talk about that more later, keep some distance. You can think about that 6 feet of distance rule and um, just make sure that they are far enough away that if that dog is releasing disease in their respiratory droplets, that it's getting filtered by the air before it reaches your puppy.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So that's one
So
respiratory
social
diseases.
distancing,
Yeah, social
which
distancing.
we
Exactly.
understand. Yeah.
And
Okay.
this is why it makes sense that shelters diseases pass often in shelters
Mm,
because they're
yeah.
in a space with crowded with a lot of dogs who are stressed out and sharing air
And possibly sick.
and possibly sick.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other ones, this is, I think, more so what people think about and what they're scared of, are the diseases that are passed through really at the end of the day. It's pee and poop. So
Mm,
feces and urine,
yeah.
or vice versa, urine and feces. So um, parvovirus passed in feces, leptospirosis passed in urine. And for that, we really have to think about not just the dog that we might be encountering passing by in that moment, but dogs who have peed and pooped in the last, well, dogs and other animals who have peed and pooped in the
Yes, because like
last.
squirrels and things can have lepto,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Right. Wildlife, even humans can.
Oh, yeah.
So, have there been animals who could be carrying these diseases, peeing and pooping in this environment in the last time frame, fill in the blank time frame for parvovirus. It can be years. That's
Yeah.
what's really scary to people is
Yeah.
I don't know if this grass is safe. How long has it been? So generally when I'm coaching pet parents to take their puppies outside in a safe way, I'm talking about finding a yard that is private or has been privately owned for years. Is it
Mm-hmm.
your backyard that you know it, if an animal has been coming in and out of it for the past few years? If so, then that's okay. There's not zero risk because you don't know if a coyote was back there or a skunk or a squirrel,
Mm-hmm.
but it's much safer than the dog park grass.
Yes.
And then I'm also
Or the
thinking
regular
about,
park grass, to be
yeah,
honest.
I
Yeah,
mean, any
like,
park grass, even your front yard, because in your front yard, your neighborhood dogs are walking by,
yes. Yeah.
pottying on it. So, yeah, if you're going to be taking them out on, soft, moist ground, I'd really want it to be privately owned, pretty well regulated grass.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you can think about taking them in spaces on the ground like the pavement or concrete where if an animal did pee or poop, it's probably not friendly to pathogens living on it. Or it's, getting really hot in the sun and things are probably, organisms are probably dying. That's going to be safer than
Is
park
that true of
grass.
the beach as well? I've heard that about the beach since the sand
Ooh,
gets so hot
that's a
that
great
it's safer
question.
than grass, but
I don't have the answer to that, but I
all
will
right.
make a note of it and get back to you.
Hmm. Food
I
for
guess
thought.
I would say if it's a dog beach, probably
Yeah, you're
stay
right.
away.
Constant exposure. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe if it's not a dog beach, although if you think about it, if you're taking your
If
dog
you,
to a
yeah,
dog
it's
beach,
probably a dog
probably
beach.
somebody else is too. Yeah.
If you're bringing your dog. Yep. No. Okay.
So,
So no beach. Good point. Thank you.
um,
Well, this is a private beach, which I don't think they exist in California.
well, I mean, if you live in Malibu and have,
Those are not private. They
that's
just think they
true.
are.
That's true.
That's a whole lawsuit.
True,
Anyway,
true, true.
side note, side
Anywho,
note.
and then we have to think too about environments that are more easily controlled, like puppy classes. If
Mm,
it's a floor that's specifically made to be disinfected, or like in our vet clinic, we pick a floor that we know we can clean easily every day because we expect pathogens to be there
hmm
getting exposed on a daily basis. Then, yeah, that's a place where there's more high volume, more traffic, but it's more controlled as to who's coming in and out. And if you trust the people running that facility and they know the animals, especially in a puppy class setting versus a vet clinic,
hmm
they know the animals are healthy, vaccinated, etc., and they're disinfecting, that's going to be much safer too than these
And there
unknown
are
environments.
special disinfectants. So I don't know. I didn't actually put this in the list. So if you don't have the answer to this, that's totally fine. But like, I don't know how much Lysol actually kills, but I know, Kennesaw and Rescue are specifically made for these pathogens.
Yeah, I don't know how much Lysol actually kills either. We use Rescue, which is accelerated hydrogen peroxide, and of course bleach is everyone's friend and for specific
Okay. So
pathogens.
bleach does kill these too?
I don't believe it kills everything. Don't quote me on that because we do
Yeah.
primarily use the accelerated hydrogen peroxide, but bleach for certain things can be useful. So it depends on the pathogen.
Yeah.
I
And
think
like
if you were
there's a
to pick
certain amount of
one,
time it has to soak with a certain dilution.
mm-hmm,
So it's a whole thing, but the vets are doing this and hopefully the people running puppy classes are doing this with
yeah.
specific disinfectants.
Yeah, but definitely do your due diligence if you are taking them to a puppy class type environment. It's not I wouldn't assume that
Yeah,
they're
you might as
cleaning in
well
the right
ask
way.
them. If you asked me, I'll tell you
Yeah.
exactly how I clean the floor, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, broad strokes, social distance for the respiratory pathogens and keep them off the floor in environments where it's more friendly to harboring pathogens that are peed and pooped out and where there's high traffic of unknown animals.
Yeah. So those are things to avoid. So what are things what does it look like when we actually do it safely? Then
Yeah.
like so we talked a little bit about like finding a private yard, but let's say I want to take them other places and expose them to other things. Like how which dogs are safe for them to meet, if any? Where can I take them?
Yeah, good question. I actually would love to hear your take on this too,
Oh
because
yeah,
you're
I'll tell
coaching
you where
people
I
on it.
take my puppies. Hmm.
Yeah, you're
Hmm.
coaching people on it all the time from the really practical standpoint. I'm usually going through the spiel of what to avoid. But what I do typically tell puppy parents is take them on car rides. A, we want them to be exposed to the car anyway. Your car is
Hmm.
probably pretty safe, and they can still see and smell and hear all sorts of things. And in LA, especially, many of the puppies I see are small, even if they're going to be large, or they're super small because they're going to be small their whole life, chihuahuas and
Yeah.
mini golden doodles and what have you. And there are so many sling bags,
Yes.
pet strollers,
Yep.
what have you. You can get a designer bag even to put your puppy in. And that way they're off the floor. And then you just have to be careful to not get too close to unknown dogs, and you're doing it.
Yeah. So we have like a puppy backpack,
Mm-hmm.
where they're like, it's a front pack, I guess. They're strapped to your front.
Like a carrier,
Then their little legs are like,
like a
it's like a
baby.
Bjorn. It's like a
Yeah.
little Bjorn for puppies. And I have a sling also, and I have a wagon, and I have a stroller.
Yeah.
So all those things. And then I usually tell people to bring hand sanitizer, like a
Mm-hmm.
pocket bottle. So like if people want to say hi to the puppy. But actually, let's touch on that. Should we be letting people say hi to the puppy
Oh,
if
good
you're out and
question.
about?
I'm less wary of people saying hi to the puppy from the idea of are the people going to pass on a bug to them?
Mm-hmm.
But from the perspective of socialization done well and respecting what the puppy is comfortable with, maybe not. I think that depends on what kind of day have they had so far? Are they up for meeting someone new? And does that person understand dog body language? And are they respecting if that puppy says, I actually need some space?
Yeah. Because if you think about like the puppy and the Bjorn, they have like no bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
So if they have no easy way to opt out of this interaction.
And if your
So
puppy in the Bjorn is saying, not in words, but in body language, I'm stoked to meet this person, then it's not a blanket rule that you shouldn't. But
yeah,
if they're uncomfortable, maybe not.
yeah, for sure. I've also told people like a big, big blanket and a little short leash if you want to like sit somewhere and watch the world go by,
Yeah.
which I think is a great thing to do also. And then they can have like a little bit more autonomy, but they're not coming into contact with the ground.
Yeah, I guess if I was being
Or the
super
wagon
careful, I
is
might
good
say
about that.
an outdoor blanket that has that waterproof side of
Yeah,
it, just
yeah,
so it doesn't get soaked with anything
that
in the
makes
grass.
sense. Yeah.
Um, I think that's a wonderful idea. That's generally what I do when I'm seeing puppy appointments. If we haven't had a chance to disinfect the floor in between appointments, puppies are pretty uncomfortable. Most animals are pretty uncomfortable on exam tables. So I try to get them off the exam table so that they can explore the environment and feel more comfortable. And if I need them on the floor safely quickly, then I'll throw a big blanket or a towel down.
Yeah, it's like a barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
you can wash it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I answered your question specifically though about safe dogs.
Oh yeah, hit
Yeah.
me.
So when it comes to puppies meeting dogs safely, one thing to think about is making sure that they're meeting dogs in different stages of their life. So it's different if they're being exposed for the first time to other puppies versus a senior dog, or most of the time they're going to be meeting adult dogs. So think about that. Again, circling back to the idea of what we learned from the COVID pandemic, I generally say think about who's their pod. Let them meet dogs that are in your life that the parents of that dog are keeping them vaccinated on flea, tick, intestinal parasite, heartworm prevention. And if they were to be having any symptoms of a potential sickness, they would be upfront with you about that. So let them meet those dogs. And then you can think about them meeting dogs in a puppy class environment too, where a facility is running it that you trust.
Hmm.
Um, and if I don't have a chance to say it later, I want to make sure I say make sure they're meeting dogs that like other dogs. We want them to
Ooh,
meet
yeah.
dogs. We want them to meet dogs and have walk away from that experience feeling like dogs are cool. We like dogs. If they meet, they're going to be rambunctious puppies. So if they meet a dog that's not so sure about that and they get some negative feedback, then they might be learning that dogs are scary.
Yeah. Which is another reason not to take your puppy to the dog park.
Yes.
Please do. I see so much people are like, oh, I take him to the dog park so he can meet other dogs. And he just hides between my legs. It's like they're terrified of all these dogs running
Yeah.
around. So
I mean,
that's so true. Some dogs like puppies and some don't.
that comes back to the really quintessential aspect of socialization, which is we're exposing them to new things and making sure that they're enjoying it.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't say where I take the puppies. So in LA,
Oh yeah.
um, you can take them to the pet store, right?
Yep.
And again, we're there's going to be other dogs there, so you want to keep your distance, and obviously they're not hitting the floor. So all these
Yeah.
outings with a undervaxxed puppy would be in the Bjorn or in um, like a cart with
Yeah.
a blanket on it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like you do with little babies. You see that where they're like
Yep.
in the little part of the cart, but it's like a blanket down as a barrier. But I just usually carry them. But so you can take them to the pet store, but that's actually kind of a little bit dicey because of all the other dogs there.
Yeah.
So I like to go to like TJ Maxx, Ross, Home Goods, that family of stores lets
Mm-hmm.
dogs in. And then you can take them to like Ace Hardware, Home Depot, Lowe's, that family kinds of
Yeah.
stores let
That's a
dogs in.
really good one for the sounds. It's a little
And
bit
men,
louder. Yeah.
like there's a lot of men at Home Depot.
Yes.
And there's a lot of dogs that are scared of men. So we can walk around and find men with beards and men with hats and just let them walk by and here's a little treat. You know what I mean? Big
Yep.
loud things and tall things. So yeah, those, and then sometimes for watching the world go by, we'll sit outside like a Starbucks.
Yeah.
Those are a
That's a
lot of the
great one.
places that I go a lot, or a park. But again, like you have to just again carrying them or in the stroller or something like that in the wagon.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder because to be completely transparent, I have cats. I don't have a dog right now. So I haven't done this for myself, but I can imagine when I adopt a puppy someday, I'm going to do these things. And if I'm sitting in a Starbucks with a puppy, people are going to walk by and freak out at how cute my puppy is, and everyone is going to want to smoosh their face into my puppy's face. What do you tell people?
Um, I sometimes have to be a little rude to people if they will
Sure.
not take no for an answer. Because some people are like, "Oh, I love dogs." Ah, ah." One lady was like, "I carry treats with me everywhere. Let me give him one." I'm like, "No, you can't." The one because this was an 8-month-old golden retriever that I knew was going to bark in her face and try to jump on her, and
Right.
we were trying to work on that. So I was like, no, you can't say hi. And she was like really offended. And people get really offended when you say they can't pet your cute dog. So
Yeah.
yeah, so if they have like a good energy, and I think that they'll listen to me, and how be like, here, here's how to approach it, kind of thing. I might give them the sanitizer and let them say hi, but otherwise I mean, the stroller's cool because it's closed,
Yeah,
right? You could
that's a
close
good
it.
hack. It
um
sort of says without
it's a
saying,
little
"You're not
barrier.
petting my puppy."
Yeah, they at least can't get their hands on the dog. And then yeah, sometimes you just have to be like, oh no, we're training, you know what I mean? I always tell my clients to blame me, be like, my trainer said
Mhm.
absolutely not, you can't
I
come
say
up,
that too. Blame
just
your
blame
gut.
me. Yeah. So
Mhm.
again, we do want them to have exposures to people. So like, it's not that I don't let them say hey, hello to anyone, but I would rather err on not saying hi than have it be scary
Yeah.
for the dog, because the whole point of why I'm out there is to teach them that people aren't scary, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
So don't be offended if you see a puppy out and they say, and some people are really good. I always love it when I see people that walk by and they just like smile, and you can tell they'd love to say hi to the dog, but they're just like respecting your distance. Those people
Yeah.
are out there, but there's a lot of people that just have no clue.
Yes. I mean, I'm sure you as well see puppies all the time when I'm with my friends from vet school and we're just hanging out on a Saturday. I can't tell you how many times we've looked at each other and seen a puppy on the ground out and about somewhere and said,
I know.
that puppy is too small to be there. We just have to put our blinders on and move on.
Yeah. So, why do you think vets are telling their clients when they're coming in with the puppies not to take them out before they have their shots?
So, again, there is a little bit of generational difference to it because socialization wasn't known to be so important for veterinarians who graduated decades ago. And so we're still making the change here. One easy answer aside from that is puppy visits are quick and there's
Mm,
a lot to cover.
yeah.
So by the time we go over the vaccine schedule, all the questions they've come in with, testing a poop sample, what age will they be spayed or neutered, fill in the blank, the list goes on. It's just a quick note of don't forget to socialize them. And I think then, in addition, most of the information that the pet parent is getting is probably online or from a
Mm,
book or from friends. And they end up receiving the message of don't socialize them, keep them safe from infectious disease. But bigger than that, I do really feel that, as is true for human health, physical health is still just valued more than mental
mm,
health, big picture.
that's
And
such a
so
good
when
point.
we're balancing, should we keep them healthy and make sure they don't get parvovirus and potentially die from that, versus should we prioritize their mental and emotional health that maybe years from now will result in a behavior problem that ends with them being relinquished at the shelter or behaviorally euthanized? We're probably going to lean towards physical health.
Mm.
And of course, I'm not here to say that's the right perspective, but I do think that's why.
But it's understandable.
Yes, and
Yeah.
physical health is so important, of course, and it's more tangible in that short term period. And so it's just easier to keep in the front of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why hopefully you find this episode when you get your puppy so that you
Yes,
can do both. You can keep them safe and socialize them.
right. You
Yeah.
can do both.
What's the biggest mistake, other than, waiting until all their shots are done, that you see when people are trying to socialize their puppy?
So, of course, I thought of multiple answers to this question, but I think number one for sure would be not paying attention to or not being knowledgeable about, probably both, dogs' body language and what that tells us about how they're feeling in that moment, because socialization isn't the same as exposure, and exposing them to new things can teach them any outcome. They could learn from all of these socialization outings that men in hats at Home Depot, other dogs, vacuums, etc. are scary. Everything's scary if you don't pay attention to your puppy's body language, if you're not pairing it with high value food rewards at the right timing. So that's definitely the number one mistake I see, is that the exposures are happening sometimes, but we're just exposing them, period, and that's it.
Mm. It's a really short window of time, right? And you can't extend it just because you want to, or just because you got your dog when they were 6 months old. Like, it's their brain develops at the rate that it develops, right? So this just happens to be a crucial point where they're learning what the world is like.
And I think people don't understand that the personality of their puppy during that time frame isn't going to last forever. They really take for granted that their puppy is happy-go-lucky, and they think that they lucked out and got the most easygoing dog on the planet, and don't expect that come 13, 14 weeks they're going to start becoming more wary of things, which they should. That's normal brain development. Um,
Yeah.
it might be worth saying, hopefully, this episode will serve as a one stop shop for getting socialization right. So, if a puppy parent is wanting to learn body language and make sure that they're remembering that aspect of it, I know you were thinking about linking to the Operation Socialization Puppy Passport. That's a really great small resource. And then I know you had Lily Chin on for an
Yeah,
episode. Her doggy language book is my favorite resource on planet Earth. And
me too.
if you have that and you really read it through and absorb it, then you're good to go.
Yes, so I will absolutely link that if people want to purchase that. I'll link Lily Chin's book, which I always recommend to people. It's short, it's a good reference to have, it's easy to read, it's very approachable. And I've
Hmm.
said it before and I'll say it again, if people would learn canine body language, it's the number one thing that would improve animal welfare in this country
I
because
agree.
people would see what I see.
And that applies, truly, that applies to the professional world too.
Yes. Oh my God. 100%.
Veterinary, shelter, trainers, etc.
Yeah. And there's really no excuse for a professional to not learn it. You know, the layperson, I'll be honest, I didn't
Sure.
learn it until I became a professional either. It wasn't something I thought about, right? But it's something that I educate almost every one of my clients about on a certain level because I still think it's really important. But if you're a professional working with animals, you really should put in a little bit of time
I
to
know.
learn this.
That's actually something I was going to say too is don't trust that you're don't trust that you're knowledgeable on body language based on how much you love dogs or if you feel like you're a dog person or you've had dogs for many years. It's a learned skill the same way that learning, how to interpret blood work in a vet clinic is a learned skill. And you do have to educate yourself from trusted resources to really get it right.
Yes, yes, just loving dogs doesn't do it. Thank
No,
you for saying that. Any other situations that you run into sometimes that you want to just sort of mention if people can be on the lookout for with their puppy?
sure. The two questions that I get most commonly, one is what if the socialization period is already up or I only have one more week to go and realistically I can't expose them to all of these things in that time frame. And like I said before, all of these same concepts still apply. In a sense, it'll be easier for you because they might be fully vaccinated at that point, so you can be a little bit less careful about keeping them physically healthy, but their brain is going to be less open to the idea of being happy and excited about new things. They're naturally going to be a bit more skeptical and fearful, and they may have already formed associations to certain
Mm,
things. And so you might be then sort of undoing a negative association. And then technically, it's desensitization and counter conditioning or DSCC.
hmm.
And you generally, in that case, just have to break it down a little bit more into smaller bits and go a little bit slower.
Yeah, less intense exposures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other one would be what if I have educated myself about canine body language and I'm noticing that my puppy seems to be afraid of everything, even though they are in the socialization window.
Mm,
And that's really important that if that happens, you seek professional help because that's more of an outlier situation. It doesn't mean that your puppy can't learn to be more comfortable, but it's a more challenging puppy to work with and much more likely that they're going to get more and more fearful over time if we don't intervene. And so, if you have a good family veterinarian who's knowledgeable about behavior, you can start with them. Or if they feel like that's not something they're comfortable with, then ask them for a referral to a veterinary behaviorist. Or what do you think, Susan? Trainers, certified?
I mean, I feel like some trainers would be. This is the problem, right? It's not regulated.
It's not
I
regulated.
cannot, in good conscience, tell you just go find a certified dog trainer and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I wish I could. Maybe someday. Maybe someday that will be true. Um, we're having issues with the certifying bodies themselves at this moment. So
Yeah.
it's really, you're really on your own to try to find a person that will help you and not do more damage to this very delicate puppy. So yeah, I think a good trainer can definitely help you. I think the problem is just making sure you find a good trainer.
And if you're going to work with a trainer or
Or
a
behavior consultant.
behavior consultant,
Yeah.
any of those professionals who are not a veterinarian or veterinary behaviorist, make sure that at a minimum they're helping your puppy gain confidence and encouraging them with positive reinforcement. If there's any method that seems to be corrective or really strongly about obedience, you're
Mm.
probably not in the right place.
Yeah, and anything about like don't comfort them because
Right.
you're going to
They'll
make it
learn, they'll
worse.
reinforce it. That's
That's
not
all
right.
garbage. Yeah, so these are some things to look out for. But yes, I actually have an episode with Zazie Todd about how to find a good dog trainer and the things to look for.
Perfect.
And she lists some resources. And then the more education a person has, the more likely they are to know about behavior and to use positive reinforcement. So, there's certified trainers, which should have some education, behavior consultants, which should have more education. Then we
Mhm.
go to applied animal behaviorists, who I think associate animal behaviorists have masters and applied animal behaviorists have PhDs.
Mm.
So, I mean, if you were to work with somebody that has a PhD in behavior, I would assume that they're going to lead you in the right direction.
Mhm. That's a
Yeah.
great point.
But those professionals are not as plentiful like vet behaviorists. They're the right person to work with, but there's less than 200 in the
Yeah.
world.
And that's really one of the big problems when it comes to the emotional and mental health component of puppies. Veterinarians are pretty minimally trained on this still. Um, I was lucky to go to UC Davis where there's a behavior service, a wonderful behavior service, and got educated from them, but doing their rotation through the service in our clinical year was optional. And I did it because, of course, it's something I'm passionate about, but not everybody did. And so wouldn't necessarily trust that your family veterinarian feels comfortable managing a really scared puppy either. I think it's more important to ask, and hopefully they're transparent and say that's not my forte, and then can point you in the direction of somebody who knows more about it.
Yeah, but important to know that they won't just grow out of it. It's not
No,
normal, so you want to address it. And the
yes,
sooner the better.
I'm glad you said that. I think that's the other biggest mistake I hear is, oh, they were nervous about it, but they're puppies. They'll understand it over time, but they won't unless we're working with them.
Thank you for stopping by the dojo this week. This is your aspiring sensei, Susan Light, signing off. You can find me at doggydojopodcast.com, or I'm Susan Light LA on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook. The music was written by MacLight. You can find him at maclightsongwriter.com. If you like the show, you can support it by subscribing, sharing it with your friends, rating it, and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts. Just a reminder, this podcast is intended for educational purposes only and does not constitute advice or professional services by either the host or any of the guests. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another new episode of the Doggy Dojo.